The sky turned dark without warning. People looked up, confused and afraid. A giant ship appeared above the city, silent and still. Soon, more ships appeared over every major city on Earth. They did not attack. They just floated in the sky like shadows. Then a sound filled the air, deep, cold, and not human. It echoed inside every mind. In every language, pick one, the voice said. You must choose one group to survive. Panic spread fast. News channels tried to understand, but there was no answer. The voice spoke again. Louder this time, choose one. The strong, the wise, the young. Or the old, the rest will be erased. World leaders gathered in meetings. People cried, shouted, and prayed. Some begged the aliens to spare everyone. Others argued it was better to save the young and rebuild. Some said the wise must live too. Guide the future. Nations broke into chaos as fear grew stronger. In a small town, far from the cities, a man watched all of this. His name was Eli, a school teacher with no family left. He had lost his wife in a car crash years ago. He had lost his brother in a war. He had lost too much already, but something inside him refused to lose hope. Eli stood in front of his small classroom, looking at his students. Some were children, some were older. All were scared. He spoke gently, trying to comfort them, but deep inside, he knew the world was breaking. He looked outside and saw the ship above them, so huge, so silent, so cold. He walked outside, alone. He stared at the sky and said, "Why do we have to choose at all?" To his surprise, the ship above the town made a low humming sound. A light shone down on him, and his body froze. Then everything around him disappeared. He found himself in a strange round room, glowing with soft blue lights in front of him. Were shadows not quite human, not quite machines? The voice returned, clearer this time. You spoke. Human Eli, why do you reject the choice? Eli took a deep breath. Because it's not a real choice, he said. You're asking us to destroy ourselves. The shadows moved slightly. Watching him, it is a test, the voice said, to measure your species' values, logic, survival, leadership. But what about kindness? Eli said. What about love, sacrifice, unity? The room went silent for a moment. No species has passed without choosing. The voice replied, you will be given 7 days. If Earth does not choose, all will be erased. Then let me speak for Earth. Eli said, let me find another way. A pause followed. The shadows looked at each other. Unreadable. Then the voice spoke again. You are one, alone, without title or power. Why should we listen to you? Eli raised his chin. Because I'm human, and that means something. Not every leader has a crown. Not every hero carries a weapon. Sometimes it just takes one heart that refuses to give up. The shadows leaned forward. Very well. The voice said, you have 7 days. If you fail, your kind will end. Eli was returned to Earth, standing in the same spot, but everything felt different now. The world had 7 days to choose. But maybe, just maybe, one man could change the game. He turned and walked back into the town. People stared at him with wide eyes. They had seen the light. The ship, the moment Eli looked at them and said, I'm not going to choose one group. I'm going to try to save them all. Some laughed, some cried, some called him mad. But others began to listen. They followed him to the school. They asked questions. They offered help. Hope, small, weak, but alive, began to grow. That night, the world felt both terrified and curious. Who was this man who spoke to the sky? What would he do? Could one human really change the fate of the world? And above, in the ship, the shadows watched. One of them whispered in their own language, this one is different. Asterisk rain fell over the school rooftop that night. The world was still shaking from what had happened. A nameless teacher had stood before the stars and asked a question no leader dared to ask. Now, his name Eli was being whispered across the globe. Not as a hero, not yet, but as the man who spoke. In hidden bunkers and military bases, leaders shouted over screens. Who gave him permission? Is this a joke? He's going to get us all killed. But none of them had spoken up when the ships first arrived. None of them had challenged the voice in the sky. Eli had, and the world had seen it. At dawn, another light appeared in the sky, this one smaller. Focused, like a signal coming just for him, Eli stood alone in the schoolyard. Eyes wide but calm. Then, without a word, he was taken again. This time, the space was different. Not a room, not a ship. It looked like a memory, but not his. He stood in the middle of a burned-out village. The air smelled like smoke. Children cried in the distance. It felt too real, too painful. From behind the ruins, a voice called out. You think love matters more than logic? You think kindness can save a species? Eli turned slowly. A tall alien stood there. Not a shadow now, but real. Skin like silver stone, eyes like fire. I think love is the only thing that has ever saved us, Eli said, and maybe it's the only thing you've never tested. The alien's name was Karen, a high observer. He had watched 1,000 worlds fall. He had judged hundreds of species and ended dozens. But something about this human made him pause. Tell me then, teacher, Karen said, if a building is on fire and you can only carry one child, who do you choose? Eli didn't answer right away. He stared at the burning scene. Then he said quietly, I break down a wall and try to make a path so more can escape, even if you die trying. Karen asked. Yes, Eli said. Especially if I die trying. The fire faded and the village vanished. Karen looked at him for a long time. Very well, he said. The trials begin now. You will face 7 trials, alone, if you pass them all. We will consider your request, but fail even one. And earth falls. Eli nodded. I'm not doing this for glory, he said. I'm doing this because no one else would. He woke up back on earth, breath short, sweat on his forehead. The schoolyard was quiet. But cameras were already outside the gate. Reporters shouted his name. Who are you really? Did they speak to you again? Are we going to die? Eli stepped forward slowly. He looked straight into one camera and said, They gave us a chance. But not the one we expected. They want me to prove we deserve to survive 7 trials. 7 chances to show them what it means to be human. Some cheered, some cried, some laughed in disbelief. But something had changed. Even the most hopeless people had stopped waiting for orders from the top. Now they were looking to him. That night, Eli stood alone in his small house, staring out the window. He thought about his wife, how she always believed in doing the right thing. He whispered her name like a promise. I'm going to try, Sarah, even if I don't come back. Suddenly, a voice echoed in his mind. Not like before. Not cold. It sounded closer, softer. The first trial begins at dawn. Eli didn't sleep that night. He just sat quietly. Holding an old photograph in his hands, the world watched his house. From every screen, every phone, every heart. No one knew what the first trial would be. No one knew if he would survive. But deep down, something had changed. Hope had a face now, and it wasn't a soldier or a king. It was just a teacher who dared to speak. Asterisk, the sky was quiet. Too quiet. Not a bird, not a breeze. Not a single sound moved through the air. And yet, every screen on Earth lit up at once. No warning, no countdown. Just one sentence glowing white on black. The first trial has begun. Eli opened his eyes in a place that didn't exist on any map. It looked like Earth, but the colors were wrong. The sky was green, the trees pulsed with light. It felt like a dream, but the fear in his chest was real. He heard a scream, far off, then fire. He ran toward it, no questions asked. That's when he saw it, a city burning, but not just any city, it was his town. Or a twisted version of it. Familiar faces trapped in flames, buildings collapsing, and above it all, the same deep voice echoed. Save one. Leave the rest. Eli froze. The trial was clear. He could only carry one person to safety. Everyone else would vanish. It was a trick, a cruel mirror of the alien demand. A child cried out, trapped under metal. An old man lay coughing behind a crushed wall. His former student called his name from a rooftop. He had seconds to decide. He ran not to the closest scream, not to the loudest. He ran to the middle of the street and grabbed a fire hydrant using all his strength. He pulled it loose and smashed through a wall. He shouted for everyone to follow the path he made. He pulled 3 people out before the flames closed in again. The voice returned, cold and puzzled. You were told to save 1. You saved 3. Eli stood, burned and coughing. No, he said. I tried to save them all. That's what humans do. We try. The fire vanished. The street turned to dust. And suddenly, he was standing back in the schoolyard, shaking, bleeding, but alive. The world watched the live stream as Eli fell to his knees. Then looked up at the sky and whispered, That's one. People around the globe stared at their screens in silence. For a moment, no one knew what to say. Then the world clapped. Not for victory, but for courage, in a dark chamber aboard the lead alien ship. Karen watched the recording. Illogical, he said. He risked failing the trial, and yet, ... Another alien replied, he broke the rules and still succeeded, perhaps. The rules are too simple for them. The second trial came the next day. No warning, just a blink, and Eli was gone again. This time, he found himself in space. No ground. No air, just floating debris and a single space capsule. Inside the capsule was a button, and next to it, a screen. The screen showed 2 locations, a refugee ship filled with sick children, and a water purification plant that supplied clean water to 10 million people. The voice returned, You may only save 1. Push the button and choose. Eli looked at the button, then at the screen. Then he closed his eyes and spoke. No, you will lose both. The voice warned. Maybe, Eli said. But I will not be the hand that kills one to save another. Suddenly, he floated forward, pulled by invisible force. The capsule broke apart, and the space around him melted like glass. He landed hard on stone. Another simulation ended. This time, the alien voice didn't speak. They were silent, confused. Observing him closely, he had failed, but also passed. He made no decision, but made a choice. He refused the logic of numbers and chose the heart of a man back on Earth. Eli awoke in a hospital bed. Monitors beeped. Nurses watched him like he was a myth. People were camped outside the building, holding signs that read, Don't give up, we believe in Eli. Try for all of us, a nurse whispered. You didn't save anyone today, Eli replied with a tired smile. No, but I didn't lose myself either. In the alien council chambers, debate had begun. He is not predictable. One said he does not follow survival logic. He is dangerous, said another. Karen said nothing, just stared at the screen, deep inside, for the first time in centuries. He felt something strange, something like doubt. 2 trials down, 5 to go, and across the world, people no longer waited to be saved. They helped each other. They talked to strangers. They looked up instead of down, because somewhere out there, a simple teacher was teaching the galaxy what it meant to be human. Asterisk, the world was changing, but not in one direction. Some people were rising, others were breaking, and the man at the center of it all was growing tired. Eli sat on the rooftop of the hospital, wrapped in a thin blanket, watching the sunrise. His hands were shaking, but not from cold. The last 2 trials had drained something inside him. He had saved lives, yes. But he had also carried the weight of those he couldn't. Below him, crowds gathered with candles and signs. Some called him a hero, others called him a fool, and in quiet corners of power. Darker voices were growing louder. We can't let one man speak for all of us. He's risking everything. He's not trained. He's not chosen. Governments met in secret. Military commanders whispered across continents. They began to form a plan, not to stop the aliens, but to stop Eli. In a cold underground room, a man named Colonel Drake stared at a screen. "People are getting soft," he muttered. "They followed this teacher like he's some kind of prophet." Another officer leaned in. "But what if he succeeds?" Drake shook his head. "If he succeeds, we become a planet led by feelings, not strategy. That's more dangerous than any alien." Meanwhile, Eli received a message from someone he hadn't heard in years. Lena, his old friend, once a fellow teacher, now a tech researcher, her face appeared on a dusty tablet screen. "Eli, listen to me," she said. "Something's wrong. They're trying to replace you." He blinked, confused. "Replace me?" "They're building a system that can answer the aliens logically. A machine that will choose faster, cleaner." Eli looked down at his shaking hands. "They still don't understand," he said softly. "This isn't a test of speed. It's a test of soul." Later that night, Trial 3 began. But this time, it was different. There was no fire, no collapsing buildings. Only silence and a single choice. He stood inside a pure white space. Before him were 2 objects, a crystal glowing with light, and a mirror reflecting his own tired face. The voice spoke again. "This trial is within you. You must give. Up one your memory, or your identity. If you keep your past, you forget who you are. If you keep who you are, you lose all memory of why you became this." Eli sat down, eyes wide, breath slow. What was he without the people he loved? What was he if he couldn't remember their names? He stared at the mirror, then at the crystal. Then he did something the aliens had not predicted. He closed his eyes and began to hum. A simple tune, the lullaby his mother sang to him. "Your memories are not just pictures," he whispered. "They are feelings. They are music. They are in the body. You can take what you want, but I will still remember the reason." The space cracked, shattering like glass. He fell through light and shadow, landing hard on a stone floor. Above him, stars swirled. Like rivers, the trial had ended, and somehow he had kept both in the alien chamber. Karen stood still. The others argued around him. But he no longer joined them. "He is rewriting the test." One said, "He is bending it." Karen whispered, "He is transforming it." But Earth was not so still. Colonel Drake's team had launched their plan. Late at night, a team of masked agents entered Eli's hospital. They were ordered not to hurt him, just remove him. Put him into silence until the better solution was ready. But someone stopped them. Lena. She hacked the hospital's power, triggered the fire alarms. Security rushed in. The agents vanished. Eli awoke in the middle of the chaos, coughing and confused. Lena grabbed his hand and pulled him down the stairwell. "They tried to take you," she said, "but not today." They escaped into the night. No longer a symbol watched by cameras, now just 2 friends running from the people they once trusted. Back in the council ship, Karen watched quietly. The humans were turning on themselves, even while one man tried to unite them. He whispered to himself, "This is the true test." Asterisk, the ship was not just a ship, it was alive. Its walls pulsed softly, like breath. Its heart beat cold and slow, and deep inside it, far from the council chambers, another voice whispered, "Ow." Not all aliens agreed with the test. Not all of them wanted destruction. Some had begun to doubt the code. One of them had been watching Eli more closely than the others, and now She was ready to act. Her name was Zara, a data seer trained to observe, not interfere. But Eli had changed her, not with weapons or speeches, but with small choices. The kind that made no sense to the mind, but reached something deeper. She activated a hidden channel, one not approved by the council. A signal, disguised as static, reached Earth. Lena received it first. A strange pattern in her equipment. It wasn't from Earth, but it wasn't a threat. It was a message. He is not being tested. He is being measured for removal. The plan is not salvation. It is cleansing. Lena stared at the screen, her heart racing. She sent the signal to Eli instantly. He read it, eyes narrowing. They never meant to give. Earth a real chance. That night, while hiding in an abandoned subway station, Eli turned to Lena. If this is a lie, if the trials are just a way to delay us until they're ready to wipe us out, we need to change everything. Zara sent one more message, this time directly into Eli's dream. In the dream, she appeared not as an alien, but as a child, standing in a field of stars. You are not fighting for survival, she said. You are fighting for memory. Eli stepped closer, confused. What memory? The memory of what your kind could be. If the council sees only your wars, your hatred, your weakness, they will erase you. But I have seen more. Then show them. Eli said. They won't listen to me alone. They will, she whispered. When you reach the 5th trial, speak these words. He woke up gasping. The sentence burned into his mind. Not words in English, but something else. Ancient, a language he should not know, yet somehow remembered. The next day, the 5th trial began. Eli was not taken into a simulation this time. Instead, he found himself in the real world, in the center of New York City. Alone, as millions watched. Above him, a ship lowered slowly, not attacking, not speaking, just watching. Suddenly, everyone around him vanished. The city stood still, frozen in time, and in front of him appeared a screen. On it were 4 options: peace, power, order. Freedom, the voice returned. Colder than ever, you may choose one path for your species, the rest will be locked away forever. Eli's heart pounded. This was not a test of courage. It was a trap. Make him choose what all of humanity could never agree on. One path would rise, the others fall. Division would follow, and the aliens would win. But then he remembered Zara's words, the sentence, ancient and strange. He spoke it aloud, even as the world stood silent. The moment the words left his mouth, the sky shimmered, the screen cracked, and a ripple spread through the air, not just around him, but far into the ships, into the minds of the aliens. Karen stood in the council hall, his eyes widening. The words triggered something, a memory long locked away of a time before conquest, before judgment, when his kind had once been human-like. The trial ended, violently. The ship above Eli shook, lights blinking, and for the first time, the voice did not speak. It was silent. Back underground, Lena watched the live stream with her mouth open. What did you say? She asked. Eli wiped his forehead, still sweating. I don't know what it meant. He said, but I think they do, in the shadows of the alien fleet. Zara stood before a hidden chamber. Inside it were others like her, quiet rebels. Data seers, watchers, they had seen enough, and now began to whisper the truth to each other. Earth is not broken, it is wakening. The earth was quiet, not because things had calmed, but because the world was holding its breath. 5 trials had passed, 5 impossible choices, and somehow, one human still stood. But every story has a cost, and the next chapter would demand more than strength. It would demand loss, far above the earth. The alien council met again. Karen stood at the edge of the circle. Silent, Zara sat opposite him, eyes calm. The others shouted, he disrupts the system. He speaks in forbidden codes. He must be removed, but Zera only. Whispered, "He is not disrupting. He is revealing." Eli, unaware of the storm above, stood on a rooftop in a ruined city. The sky was orange, the air thick. He had been brought here without warning, no timer, no voice. Just a ticking sound, deep, slow, final. In front of him was a holographic map. 2 dots blinked, far apart. The voice finally returned. "This is your 6th trial. 2 places, 1 choice, save 1. And the other is lost." The screen zoomed in. One was a city in the south, filled with families and children. The other was a coastal plant that cleaned water for 1/3 of the continent. Each choice would save millions. Each choice would doom millions. Eli stared at the blinking lights, his mouth dry, his heart sinking. No third option. He asked. Silence. Of course not. He stepped back, mind racing, every instinct screamed to act. To move, to choose. But his hands refused. Not this way. Not like this. Suddenly, the sky cracked open. A beam of light shot down, forming a new platform. A voice softer than before spoke. "You may choose. Or take their place." Eli blinked. "My place. If you choose neither and step into the beam, your life will be taken instead. And both the city and the plant will be spared." His legs felt weak. It was no longer about strategy or clever words. This was the purest test. Give your life so others could live. No reward, no escape, no return. Back on Earth. Cameras caught the moment. People watched around the globe as Eli dropped to one knee. Tears ran down his face. Not out of fear, but out of love. He pulled something from his pocket, a picture of his wife. He kissed the edge of the photo and whispered, "I told you I'd try." Then he stood. Not slowly, not shakily. He stood with peace in his heart and walked toward the beam. Lena screamed from her bunker. "No, Eli, don't." But the signal couldn't reach him. He stepped into the light and vanished. The map disappeared. The cities were safe. The people were saved. The voice that had guided every trial said nothing. For the first time, the council had no words. Zera closed her eyes. "He passed," she whispered. "But we lost him." Or so they thought. Moments later, Eli opened his eyes. But he was no longer on Earth. No longer in the simulation. He was. Somewhere else, the walls were not metal. They were stars, moving, alive. And in the center of the space stood Karen. "You were not meant to survive," Karen said. "But you were not meant to be like this either." Eli looked around. "Am I dead?" Karen shook his head. "No, you were." Witnessed, he gestured behind him. Dozens of alien forms stood silently. Some old, some new. All of them watching him. Not with anger, but with awe. "You've changed something in us," Karen said, "something we thought was lost. And now, a final trial remains." Eli frowned. "I thought that was the final trial." "No," Karen replied. "The last one is not yours. It is ours." Asterisk, there was no sound. No light, no trial. Just stillness. And in that stillness, something ancient broke. Karen stood at the edge of the star room. The other council members beside him, silent. Eli stood in the center. His hands open. He did not beg. He did not plead. He had already given everything. "You passed," Karen said. "Not the test we wrote, but the one we did not know existed." Behind them, the chamber shifted. Screens lit up, showing Earth. Not its armies, not its buildings, but its people. A mother sharing bread with strangers. A boy carrying his injured dog through floodwaters. A group of one-sonomis building homes together after war. Zera stepped forward. Our species watched for fear, but we found courage. We tested for logic. But we found heart. We came seeking weakness and found something stronger. Eli didn't speak. He just looked at them with tired eyes. Then why did you make us choose? He asked, why did you force this on us? Karen lowered his head, because we lost the ability to feel what you feel. Empathy is dangerous to a race that forgets it. We forgot it. There was a long pause. Then Zira raised her hand and pressed something in the air. The ships above Earth began to disappear, not in fire, not in noise, but like fading dreams on Earth. People watched in disbelief. Children pointed, elders cried, soldiers lowered their weapons. And for the first time in a long time, hope did not feel like a lie. Eli felt his body growing lighter, not in pain, not in death, but in release. You are free, Karen said. You may return home, but Eli stayed still. His voice was soft. I gave my life. Karen nodded. You did. Then why am I still standing? Karen stepped forward, because your sacrifice was not to die, it was to give. And the universe has accepted your gift. A door opened behind him. Inside was a corridor of light. Zira smiled. Go, Eli, not to return as the same man, but as the first bridge between species. He turned slowly and walked into the light. Each step felt like walking through memory. His first day as a teacher, the night he lost his wife, the moment he stepped into the beam too. Save the cities and the faces of everyone who believed in him. He did not walk alone. He carried all of them inside him. Back on Earth, days passed, then weeks. People began to live differently. Not perfectly, but better. Borders reopened. Wars paused, not because of politics, but because one human made aliens. Stop and listen. In a quiet town, in a small classroom, a new teacher walked in. He looked like Eli, but younger somehow, eyes full of galaxies. He said his name was Elias, and when he smiled, it felt like the universe smiling back. Lena watched. From a distance, she knew it was him. Changed, but still him. And somewhere far above the Earth, a single alien ship remained. Inside it, Karen stood by a window. Beside him, Zara placed her hand on the glass. She whispered something ancient, not in their language, but in Earth's. Humanity did not. When they reminded us who we were, and in that quiet moment, as stars blinked softly outside the ship, they finally understood something Eli had always known. Some choices were never about choosing who to save. They were about refusing to let anyone be lost.